If we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. That statement, attributed to President Muhammadu Buhari, underscores how endemic corruption is in the fabric of the Nigerian society. Corruption is considered to be a hydra-headed monster that rears another ugly head from time to time. Studies on the impact of corruption indicate that it could erode 37% of gross domestic products, GDP, by 2030, if not dealt with immediately. But what is being done to fight and kill corruption in Nigeria? And is everyone on the same page in the fight against corruption? We will find out in the course of today's episode of 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. Many thanks for tuning in. I am Mitaire Ikpen. Call it the abuse of public office for private gain, and you will not be wrong. Corruption affects public finances, business investments, as well as standard of living. It is an impediment to growth and development, standing in the way of access to healthcare and basic social amenities for many citizens. Ekene Ondulwe, in our first report, provides insight into Nigeria's battle to kill corruption.
For several decades now, Nigeria has been battling with the issue of corruption, which has been severally attributed as the major factor militating against economic development and social cohesion in the country. Successive administrations have made efforts to stem this vice, but results show how endemic it has become.
Before the coming of this government, corruption was a pandemic. Now it is endemic. We hope in the near future it's going to become infectious.
Statistics from the Transparency International for year 2021 show that Nigeria ranks 154 out of 180 countries, making it the second most corrupt country in West Africa after Guinea, which is ranked 150 on the Global Index. So much of the country's success depends on how effective the fight against corruption is, and it is for this reason that the Buhari administration established the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption with the mandate to advise the president on how best to tackle corruption in the country. Professor Sadiq Rada is the executive secretary of this committee, and he believes reforms introduced under the present administration have largely brought about a high level of accountability in public offices.
The government believes if we want to improve security in Nigeria and we want to revamp the economy, then we must fight corruption, because without fighting corruption, you cannot in any way provide security to the people. You cannot improve the economy. That is why giving security, revamping the economy will naturally involve the fight against corruption. And when this government came into power, 2015, it made good its promise. Among many other things was the establishment of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption to give intellectual and sound advice to the president on how best to tackle corruption. Now, as a committee, we have done a lot within Nigeria, and we have done a lot outside Nigeria regarding the fight against corruption. We have partnered with the anti-corruption agencies, and I mean EFCC, ICPC, Code of Conduct Bureau, NIT, TUGA, NFIU. We have all worked with them, and we have made a lot of progress. We have brought about a number of reforms in Nigeria. Then we have had series of engagements outside the country, and that's why you see us recovering money from abroad. There is now this belief that, unlike in the past, something is being done regarding corruption in Nigeria. So in broad, you can say that the government made promises to Nigerians that corruption will be fought, security will be improved, economy will be improved, and efforts are being made, to fulfill those promises. Whether it is being done to the satisfaction of every Nigerian or not is a different matter. But the bottom line is the government has never lost sight of the need to fight corruption in Nigeria since the beginning and up till today.
The use of technology is a big step in ensuring transparency in governance, but analysts note that there is little technology can do if people of integrity are not in positions of authority.
Ministries, departments, and agencies of government were having series of accounts. The government introduced what is called the TSA, Treasury Single Account. So all government money is concentrated in TSA. The government introduced EPs, where people are paid their salaries using that platform. Many ghost workers have been weeded out. There are still problems, but then we have made some achievement. There is what is called transparency portal, where Nigerians can monitor government spending. You know, there is the bank verification number, where you cannot have serious accounts without synergy between the accounts. You know, so a lot of innovative ways have been brought on board to ensure that reforms are implemented and people can be held to account. And as you can see, because of the reforms, it's now fairly possible for us to monitor what is going around within the financial sector because we are now part of the Egomont group.
We need to start incentivizing good deeds because if you look at the fabric of our society, it has eaten deeper into corruption. So we need to start identifying people who, irrespective of all the pressure, they still choose to do the right thing. So we need to recognize them and incentivize them. This will send a message to society and say, you know, if you're manning some of this initiative deployed by government, you must do the right thing even if no one is watching you. So do not, tamper with the system for your own selfish and personal reasons. You must look at, collective goodwill of the Nigerian people, but most importantly, contributing your own role towards nation building as an individual, because it starts with you and I.
We feel strongly that if we're able to have people of integrity, people that are accountable, who have an accountable society and be able to deliver the right services to citizens. So we run a project called the Integrity Icon, which names and fames honest government officials who are doing the right thing across different sectors, from the health, from education to procurement, the justice sector, the security sector. So you'll find out with the recent happenings in Nigeria, the insecurity, you can't even beat your chest to say this person is doing the right thing or that person is doing the right thing. In procurement processes, you can't even beat your chest to say people are doing accountable processes within those processes. So once we have a situation, a platform where we have people of integrity, people that are accountable in these processes, we are sure that we can deliver services.
It is for the sake of whipping public officers in line and keeping tabs on financial dealings that agencies like the Economic Crimes and Financial Commission, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Nigerian Financial Intelligence Units, among others, were created. So far, the spate of arrest and prosecution and the profile of offenders are quite revealing. On the flip side, civil society organizations believe the present administration has demonstrated serious commitment in the fight against corruption, especially with the signing of the Open Government Partnership by President Muhammadu Buhari.
We're not where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. President Muhammadu Buhari signed up on the Open Government Partnership, that's the OGP, which now ensured that we have two co-chairs, one from the government side, and the current co-chair is the Minister for State for Budget and Planning, and one from the civil society part. So for the first time, civil society and the government, rather than throwing chairs at each other, would sit at the meeting. Yes, we would disagree, but at the end of this meeting, we come to some agreement and have a national action plan that we will jointly implement for 2 years and continue to review this implementation and serve the people. Because again, when you look at it, as civil society, as government, our role as humanitarian is to ensure that this citizens are better served and service delivery are brought closer to citizens, and we can build back trust and ensure that citizens support government and government provides service delivery while collecting feedback using civil society.
Nigeria is truly a global leader in ending anonymous companies, which is the way in which illicit and stolen wealth is stashed. and taken away from the public. So these are very important reforms that have been undertaken by the government in fighting corruption. That's one area. The second area in which the NAP1 and NAP2 have made significant progress is in ensuring that there are tangible benefits to ordinary citizens from open government, not just fighting corruption, grand corruption up there. And here, there's been a landmark Right to Information, Freedom of Information Act, which empowers citizens with the right to information. Also, you are one of the notable countries in our 77-country partnership which has taken OGP to the state level and to the local level. And at the state level, as you know, there is transparency through the OGP process at the state level, so citizens can oversee the budgets, citizens can give feedback on health and education. There is very important innovations in Kaduna, for instance, on citizen eyes and ears, where citizens give feedback on whether health and education and road services are being delivered for them.
But more is required to advance the fight against corruption. Key players believe citizens have a huge role to play, as governments cannot do it alone.
Your participation in elections matters. And as you show up and you make statements around who you want to vote and how you want, to be governed, it makes a difference. Number two is after you finish voting, the power that you exercise on the day of the election is not gone. That power is the office of a citizen of Nigeria. And that from a local level all the way to a federal level, from your local government chairman, from your councillor, that you as a young Nigerian can hold them accountable.
Most Nigerians, the elite, the middle class, the lower class believe it is the duty of other people not to be corrupt, not me. Most Nigerians believe corruption should be fought by the president, EFCC, ICPC. They don't care about themselves, what they do. This is a big problem. Unless and until every Nigerian realizes that they have a role to play, then it's going to be a huge challenge.
In the words of the president, corruption is fighting back, and the result is Nigeria's current position on the Global Corruption Index. It is indeed a clear and present danger on the growth and development of the country, and concerted efforts need to be made to return Nigeria to its pride of place among Committee of Nations.
I cannot agree less with you, Ekene, that corruption is a clear and present danger that must be eliminated through concerted efforts. But what are the various shades of corruption, and is the fight against corruption receiving the much needed support from Nigerians to make it a collective fight? Thomas Ogbetere provides further insights.
Corruption has been one of the challenges bedeviling Nigeria as a nation. Corruption manifests in various shades in all spheres of life, ranging from embezzlement of funds by some political and public office holders, sex for grades in tertiary institutions, budget padding, kickbacks for award of contracts, giving and receiving bribes to push files in offices, just to mention a few.
Two different categories of corruption, what we call grand corruption and petty corruption. Some people also have what they call administrative corruption. But first of all, grand corruption. Grand corruption is corruption that takes place at the topmost levels of government, involving millions and billions of naira. And it is corruption that can affect really the life of people. When corruption takes place at top management in government, it means a lot of money is moved away from projects, and this takes the form of misappropriation of funds, diversion of funds, and even outright stealing of the funds. Then petty corruption is corruption that is a street level, that takes place on the streets, like in the marketplace, when a woman selling gari knocks in the cups of the mudu to make it contain less for the same amount. Nobody is there watching her. She thinks she's making extra money, but she's actually depriving another person of what that person is paying for. You are paying, let's say, 100 naira, and you're not getting 100 naira worth. That is petty corruption, street level corruption. Street level corruption also takes place where, like, officers along the road collect money from drivers, 20 naira, 50 naira, 100 naira, just for passing, or just for Roger, just for nothing, you know. But administrative corruption is another type of corruption that takes place in offices. It may be grand and it may be petty, but basically it's administrative because it is corruption brought on by bureaucracy. Corruption that makes an officer to demand something for him to do his normal duties.
Government, through various anti-graft agencies, have made efforts to stem the tide of corruption, but how much public support has the fight against corruption received?
We mobilize public support, and yes, to a large extent, we are getting their support. Buy-in. Students, beautiful, they want to join the fight against corruption because we make them see that it is their future that is at stake.
Fight against corruption is one, I keep saying, is a very simple fight. All we need is getting the right person to lead that fight. Once you lead, if you get a right leader to lead that fight against corruption, every other person will fall into line. Let me give you a concrete example of what is happening in a state like Borno State. As isolated as it is, do you know the governor of Borno State? I've forgotten his name now. In some instances, will pay unscheduled visits to ministries, even to schools. There was the case of one of the schools that the governor decided to pay an unscheduled, and when he got there, he found only one woman whom they claimed, whom I learned is a Christian from the south, and automatically the governor made the woman the principal of that school. As I'm talking to you, after that incident, before school resumes every morning, every school, all the teachers, including students, will be in school because nobody knows where the next visit will be. And it is the same thing. If we must get the fight against corruption right, then we need a change in our political, social value system.
As part of efforts to enlist the public in the fight against corruption, as well as sensitize the masses on their rules, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has introduced anti-corruption clubs in most schools in Nigeria.
We introduced the National Values Curriculum. It's old. People don't know that we have it because it is not taught as a subject on its own. It is infused inside existing school subjects, including civic education. You know, so we are teaching these positive values that children should have, and letting them know that it is better to be a person of integrity. But beyond that, there are extracurricular activities. You mentioned clubs. We have students anti-corruption clubs, and there are other integrity clubs in schools that teach positive values, tell children what to do, tell children to speak out against corruption.
Corrupt tendencies and practices rob the society of basic infrastructure such as health, transportation, educational facilities, especially when the proceeds of corruption are diverted to private pockets by public servants.
If the government votes 200 million to build a road where there is no road, and a contractor pockets 100 million and uses 100 million to construct that road is not likely to be well built. If they build drainages, it might not be, that road will not last. That community is not going to end up having a road that is motorable or durable for a long time.
For people to involve in corruption, it has deprived you of livelihood. One, it has deprived individuals of their dreams and aspirations. It deprives the prosperity that a community hope to achieve out of existence of where they found themselves.
Some analysts, however, find it rather so sad that members of the public that are being shortchanged sometimes end up supporting those who shortchange them just to get a pittance.
Civil servants, they are not being paid very well. Their salaries are minimal, and it affects them. It's one of the inducements for them to be doing things that are wrong in the system, accepting bribes and inflating contracts for them to make money from that contract from the system.
And someone comes, come, I'll give this to help me do this. You jump at it because you are not financially independent. So there's a limit to what you can actually resist.
It is also observed that many Nigerians need more sensitization on how to hold their leaders accountable and follow their state or local government budgets for accountability.
From the low to the high, because insecurity is a problem today. So these are areas that without corruptions, the money could have been used to solve all the problem, the need of life.
What I will tell Nigerians is corruption doesn't pay. Corruption at any level doesn't pay. And there is no justification, no rationalization for corruption. That somebody else is doing it and getting away with it is not an excuse for you to get involved in corruption. It doesn't pay. We are all religious people in this country and we believe in God. And there is no religion that encourages corruption. Do what your religion says that you should do, and we'll be fine.
To some analysts, while granting state pardon is constitutional, there is no moral justification for granting pardon to those convicted by the judiciary for stealing the nation's commonwealth.
Yet the constitution empowers the president to pardon whoever he so wish. But morally, there should be area the president should not exercise that power.
Of course, morality, you know, is not legality. But looking at it from the moral standpoint, how will someone who had stolen billions of naira belonging to the community is arrested and jailed for stealing, let's say, 1 billion naira? And after spending a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, you grant him pardon and tell him to go home and sin no more. While in the same prison where he came out from, there are people who are languishing in prison for stealing maybe a bag of rice, for stealing maybe a GSM handset, for stealing electronic devices. People who, in certain instances, stole because they had no other choice. Meaning, if the politicians had done what they were supposed to do, most of the people in jail will not be in jail because they will be gainfully employed. If the prerogative of mercy were to be looked at objectively, I would suggest, in my own opinion, that it should be across board. The government can wake up one morning and say, okay, everybody, let us carry out an audit of everybody who is in jail. If you are in jail because you have stolen anything less than 1 million naira, we are releasing you the next day. Go home and sin no more, but we have your records. It will make a lot of sense.
The consensus is that government cannot fight corruption alone. There is advocacy for all Nigerians to own the fight against corruption and also shun all forms of corruption so that a decent and a corrupt-free society may emerge for present and future generations.
Quite true, Thomas. It is time for all Nigerians to own the fight against corruption and make it collective to safeguard the nation's commonwealth for the prosperity of present and future generations. That's where we leave it on 30 Minutes today. Remember, you can be a whistleblower to expose corruption wherever you find it. My name is Mitaire Ikpen. See you next time.